Political opponents are imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq. A wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq. Of Ukraine. Iraq. Anyway.
Well, like many people, remember the incredible onslaught of bullshit narratives that followed in the aftermath of the 9/11 attack. And one of the first people to pick up on the fact that many laws of physics certainly didn't apply to that day were the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. They realised that steel does not melt at the temperatures that jet fuel burns at. In fact, jet fuel burns nowhere near the temperature that steel melts in truth. And we can find that out very quickly from a Google search. Just go, what temperature does steel melt at? Fine, there's a range of melting points here for various grades of steel, all around 1500 mark, 1500 degrees C. And if we pop in what temperature does jet fuel burn at, we find it burns at between 800 and 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. Now 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, if we pop that into the converter, is only 815 degrees C, which is half the temperature required to melt steel, which is, of course, as we've just seen, around 1500 degrees. So there is absolutely no possibility on God's earth that those planes brought down the towers and melted the steel infrastructure that holds them up. It's as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. And we also have, just very briefly, let's have a look here. There's Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. This is a Facebook page. Just having a look here, and lo and behold, here we have an interesting story of a family of Brit killed in 9/11 have evidence towers were blown up from inside. That's extraordinary. His family, supported by a scientific team, claim the towers were laced with explosives which brought them down. Yesterday, a 3,000-page dossier was handed to the government top legal advisor, Acting Attorney General Michael Ellis, detailing their case. Just have a quick look at that because it does look quite interesting. The family of Brit killed in 9/11 have evidence towers were blown up from the inside. This is really quite an astounding story. Just read down to the bottom. Let's have a look here. His older brother Matt said, "I believe there has been a cover-up. We have scientifically and forensically backed evidence that the official narrative surrounding the Twin Towers collapse on 9/11 is wrong." Well done, guys. Brilliant. And isn't it strange that British people keep rumbling American corporate crime? And it seems to be a recurring theme at the moment that, yes, Brits are rumbling American corporate corruption at twice the speed that Americans appear to be able to. So, yeah. Make of that what you will. Now, if we bear in mind that Bush managed to give away the biggest catalogue of crime and corruption in human history just with one single gaffe, I think it's worth taking a closer look at the gigantic list of betrayal that he gave away, culminating, this is in the grand finale here, of new insights into who killed Christ. And you might be forgiven for wondering, how does that work? And I suggest it goes something like this. Here we have Dr. Fauci in the 80s. This is working on viruses in order to undermine the human immune system. This is gain of function research in order to outwit the human immune system and leave us constantly, therefore, at the mercy of all kinds of intruders and invaders into our body, and therefore, kept terminally ill, begging for help from pharmaceutical companies. A very simple strategy that's worked extremely well in order to obviously capitalize profits for American corporate drug companies. Now, this actually is exactly the same. It's just a techno version, or just a modern um, day version of a very old form of gain of function research, which this time applied to cancer, which, as I say, has been going on for at least 2,000 years, and most likely far in excess of that figure. This is just cancer charities scams suppressing cures for cancer so they can use the disease to cause maximum damage. Literally the oldest business on the planet, in order to use the mutilated victims to collect ever increasing amounts of money to look for cures, when in truth they use the money to suppress them and beat anyone to death for exposing the scam. That includes me. I almost lost my life for exposing this scam on a couple of occasions. So yeah, that has been brought to my attention in no uncertain terms. And if we just have a look at how this works in the broader picture, this is like gain of function research is ancient history. It doesn't just apply to cancer, it applies literally to every single terminal illness known to mankind, of which, people like Jesus Christ had effective treatments and cures and gathered knowledge in order to reverse the symptoms. So obviously by killing them and getting rid of them, effectively you've managed to ramp up every disease known to man into something more terrifying and more profitable. And just to put this in a broader perspective, we have counted the number of the beast here as predicted in the Bible. This is an identification of exactly how long this scam has been going on. This to suggest that this cancer charity scam goes on a 2,000-year cycle, much like a clock. Therefore, it's very likely to be 50,000 years old already, in light of the fact that we now have new evidence to show that we had very sophisticated towns and cities existing on Earth far earlier than we previously believed. And if we put this, just briefly into a timeline, we can see here we are here in 2022, battling away with our modern day corruption dramas, which obviously is an extremely modern phenomenon. I mean, just from sort of this point of view, it's obviously the last 60 years. Now, from this point of view, we're looking at the last 2,000 years. This is applying to this little gap here. And then when you pop this into the equation, then you start to find, yes, that, as I said, this all stretches back to 50,000 years ago. This is the Indus Valley Rama Empire, which, again, we're finding new archaeological evidence to prove it is far older than we previously thought. Likewise, this sunken city in Cuba, there's lots of interesting articles on Google about that. But it's safe to say that this corruption dates back a very long time, and Jesus Christ himself was at odds with the bank in much the same way that our friend John F. Kennedy was. Just to put this in another perspective, this story of Jesus clearing the temple of money changers really smacks of all the same features that the JFK assassination is full of. And if we just have a quick look down this interesting article here, this is Jesus in the temple of money changers, aka the bank, telling them what he thinks of their business. And if we just have a quick look, it says Jesus was so filled with anger at the desecration of the holy place that he took some cords and wove them into a small whip. He ran about knocking over the tables of the money changers, spilling coins on the ground. He drove the exchangers out of the area along with the men selling pigeons and cattle. He also prevented the people from using the court as a shortcut. As he cleansed the temple of greed and profit, Jesus quoted from Isaiah 56, "My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of robbers." Ha ha ha. Well, we could almost imagine JFK said saying the same thing. And here we go, points of interest from the story. Jesus drove out the money changers from the temple on Monday of Passion Week, just 3 days before the Passover and 4 days before his crucifixion. So yes, that altercation resulted in his murder, which is just more evidence really stacking up at the moment in terms of really what George Bush managed to give away in this ridiculous Freudian slip, as well as the true extent of corruption that we're being afflicted by at the moment in terms of this virus. But yeah, and just one last thing before I go. Did anyone notice this date here, November the 22nd, 1963? That means next year, 2023, November the 22nd, will be the 60th anniversary of JFK's assassination. That is about 18 months away at the moment. And that, yes, is, I think, absolutely extraordinary, and a very good thing that, therefore, that this video has been made to bring this agenda forward, and raise these issues with the public just on time for the anniversary, the 60th anniversary of his assassination. Thank you very much for watching.